4, 3, 2, 1. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to the another episode of our podcast Shift, Code and Learn. I'm your host Riaz. I'm a manager talent acquisition here at GoodCore Software. AI is everywhere right now, but there's a big difference between impressive demos and AI systems that actually work in production. Our topic for today is Gen AI in production beyond demos and hype. And I'm joined by Zameet Sabir to explore this topic with me. He's a software engineer here at GoodCore Software. Zameet, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Zameet, we see Gen AI everywhere, from founders to CTOs to CIOs. Everyone is talking about it, but very few mature in production. So from your perspective, what's the real difference between a Gen AI demo and Gen AI in production?
That's a very good question, depending upon the hype of Gen AI that has been going on. I think the main difference that arises is because when we're working in a demo, when we're starting building it, when we're building a POC around it, the questions that are given to that model, that specific model that you want to train, are very optimistic. जब हम उसको train करेंगे तो हम उसको इस तरह के questions देंगे that we think are right. But when we go on the production side, where actual customers, actual humans are interacting with the model, उस case में हमारे पास क्या होगा कि the human can speak in any kind of way. He can ask the model anything. You don't know what he's going to ask if he wants to exploit something in your model. तो उस case में हमारे पास बहुत ज़्यादा risk factor increase हो जाता है. You don't know when to trust the model. You don't know if the model is secure enough because it can give false positives. It's just a prediction model. The main difference between a normal AI and Gen AI, Gen AI specifically means it's a prediction model. It predicts the next word that it wants to say. And if you look at it from that perspective, it is bound to hallucinate. You have to train it. There are methods to train it, but still there are ways you can make it hallucinate. You can make it leak data. For example, if your model is connected to a very, let's say, a database that has your customer's data or a sensitive data, a user can give it some prompts and make it hallucinate and provide information to the users that are. So what happens is you can make it go around some ways. You can make it go around. For example, you have added authentications, added many checks that a user cannot get that data. For example, if for you're a talent acquisition manager, you know how sensitive an employee's data is, his CNIC, his home address, his phone number, or his bank account numbers. For example, you make a chatbot for your organization that can help you read policies, and every employee of yours can benefit from that. But an employee, he's notorious, he wants to go around the model, he can feed false information, he can feed some specific structured prompts to the model so that it leaks the information it has, it leaks the data it has. If your model was linked to an employee, it may leak the data it has. So that is why I think that is a risk factor. Good engineers evaluate that risk factor and either stop building it or build around it. You have to add many checks. So that's why I think it's mainly the demos don't go to production. The reason would be because the risk factors are very big. If you want to add AI into a model, you need to ask yourself, is AI suitable for this job? Do you really want Gen AI, or do you just want some workflow automations that you can have without using generative AI?
Zameet, when Gen AI hits real users, what are some of the challenges that engineering teams usually run into?
The first and foremost challenge, I think, would be the cost of that model. Because when we're building the model, as I said earlier, we build on a very optimistic approach. We make a lot of assumptions when building the model. The assumptions can be that a user will give a certain type of prompt and the model will respond in a certain way. But जब हमारा model production की तरफ जाता है, the user can ask anything and the model can respond based on that. अब अगर आपका user एक बहुत बड़ा prompt देता है and उस पर बहुत बड़े responses जाने लग जाते हैं, that you did not assume would happen. You assume that the model would give, for example, a 200-word response, but your model started giving 500 to 600 words of responses.
It gives different options as well. This is the first option that you want to select.
That can be that is more of a feature that you can add into your product. If you're building your own product, it's a feature if you want to give, but if you do not want to give that feature, you can rule it out. So what happens is every word comes with a cost. Every word that the model is processing, that the model is giving out, it comes with a cost. So if your model was assumed to give out 250, 300 words, and it started hallucinating, it started giving out like 500 or 600 words per response, what would happen is that simply your cost will go up. If your model is not locally deployed, usually, the usual case is that everybody buys a model like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. These are very famous names in the market. People buy subscriptions from these models, and they provide you a subscription based on the tokens. The token can be the words that we use.
Acha, one thing that you mentioned that every word counts. I came across a meme the other day of Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, and he was very scared by the word called please. Because, when we use ChatGPT, sometimes we say kindly do this or please do that, So maybe that's also a cost because behind that are these huge chips that are burning.
Yeah, we can also integrate into that, because as I said, every word counts because it is being processed by that model. As you said, the chips are being burned because the chips are processing that data, and for processing the data, you need money, you need electricity, you need power, you need everything that the model requires. So the first big challenge is the cost that suddenly rises. Your model can go from costing to $20-$30 to $2,000-$3,000. So that is a big challenge that companies may face.
What are some other challenges?
One big challenge, apart from costing, would be the trust that breaks between the customer and the product, because AI can give you false outputs. Exactly, because for him, for the model particularly, the AI is not lying. AI if we talk about generative AI, the core concept of generative AI is to predict the next word that comes after the word that it has already predicted. So it's a series of predictions. Like from our childhood, we hear people speak and we analyze how different grammars and different prepositions are added. In the same way, Gen AI learns by taking in different inputs throughout the internet, and it builds a sentence based on its prediction. So it's not necessarily that the information that it's providing is factual. There are methods that you can give to the AI, to the generative AI. You can integrate many things to, like, for example, you integrate internet, you integrate the database. So the AI model knows what context of information it needs. But in general, the main term that is being used for this false information is hallucination of AI. AI starts to hallucinate. It starts giving out non-factual information that is not required. That is either not required or either not true. So in short, yes, we can say that AI may lie to you.
There's a lot of talk about prompt engineering these days, Zameet. I would like to know that how important is it compared to overall system design?
So prompt engineering and system design are two parts of how you build a Gen AI system. Prompt engineering refers to you giving the prompt to the Gen AI and it produces an answer. System design is what we as software engineers or AI engineers need to take care of. So if we can give an example, prompt engineering is like tuning your engine. For example, you have a 1000cc car, you tune its engine, you make it go as smooth as possible. But you have to remember that the car would remain a 1000cc car until you change that engine. So prompt engineering is like tuning that engine for it to work efficiently. But if you talk about system design, it's like deciding whether you want a bicycle, you want a car, you want a bike. It's deciding what goes around that engine, what type of engine you're using. Do you require that engine? Do you need such an expensive engine for your daily commute? So if we talk about Gen AI, there are various models that you have. There are various ways that you can engineer the whole output. So like अगर हम बात करें GPT की, there are GPT के अलग अलग मॉडल है 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, different models. अब आपने खुद डिसाइड करना है कि what model do you want.
कुछ मॉडल ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट हैं
Exactly. कुछ मॉडल ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट हैं, कुछ मॉडल्स आपके डिफरेंट डॉक्यूमेंट्स को, डिफरेंट चीज़ों को एक्सेस कर सकते हैं. बट डू यू नीड दैट लेवल ऑफ इंटेलिजेंस? And the second thing that goes hand in hand in system designing is whether you want it to get the information from a certain database. There's a thing called RAG pipelines in AI. बहुत आजकल जो है उसकी एक हाइप है। द हाइप इज़ बिकॉज जैसे हमने प्रीवियस क्वेश्चन में बात की कि एआई कैन हेलुसिनेट। अब उस हेलुसिनेशन को मिनिमाइज करने का क्या तरीका है? वो तरीका ये है कि यू गिव इट सम सर्टेन सेट ऑफ डाटा
हाउ
दैट
डू
इट
वी
कैन
नो
रिलाई
कि एआई हेलुसिनेट करता है?
ऑन।
एग्जाम्पल बता सकते हैं कोई?
या वेरी गुड एग्जांपल ऑफ हेलुसिनेशन कैन बी, अगर हम देखें जीपीटी जब शुरू में था उससे अगर हम कोई मैथ्स का क्वेश्चन पूछते थे तो वो मेजॉरिटी ऐसा हमारे पास केस होता था कि वो आपको रॉन्ग आउटपुट्स देता। हिस्टोरिकल डेट्स वो बहुत ज़्यादा हेलुसिनेट करता था, आपको रैंडम हिस्टोरिकल डेट्स किसी भी फैक्ट के साथ अटैच कर देता था। एंड अ वेरी फेमस एग्जांपल वाज अ लॉयर ट्राइड आस्किंग अबाउट लीगल एडवाइजिंग ना फ्रॉम चैट जीपीटी। what happened is ChatGPT started giving case numbers कि ये इस तरह केस था, उसमें ये हुआ था, ये ट्रायल था, ये सब कुछ था। What happened when he researched about those case numbers were totally fabricated. Because what happens is it's totally a predictive model as we were talking about. फिर उसमें जब हम रैग इंटीग्रेट कर देते हैं, रैग का मतलब ये है कि हम एक पूरी पाइपलाइन क्रिएट करते हैं जिसके थ्रू हमारा जो मॉडल है वो एक पर्टिकुलर टाइप ऑफ डाटाबेस नॉर्मली नोन एज अ वेक्टर डाटाबेस उससे इंटीग्रेट होकर उससे बैक एंड फोर्थ कम्युनिकेशन कर सकता है। तो उस समय फ़ायदा क्या होता है, उस डाटाबेस में हम फैक्चुअल इन्फॉर्मेशन रख सकते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर यू, अगर हम आपकी बात करें, आपको एक ऐसा चैटबॉट बनाना है जिसमें आप पॉलिसीज़ अपनी सारी इंटीग्रेट कर सकें, सारी पुश कर सकें, और कोई भी आपका एम्प्लॉय जो है वो ईजिली, या कोई भी आप जो जहाँ पे आप इंटरव्यूज़ कंडक्ट करने जा रहे हैं तो वो ईजिली उस चैटबॉट के थ्रू आपकी पॉलिसीज़ को जो है समराइज़ करवा सकें। सो उस केस में आप क्या करेंगे, अपनी पॉलिसीज़ एक वेक्टर डाटाबेस में इनपुट करके और फिर उसको अपने मॉडल के साथ इंटीग्रेट करवाएंगे। दैट रिड्यूसेस द चांसेस ऑफ हेलुसिनेशन बाय मैनी फोल्ड्स, बिकॉज अब आप उसको एक फैक्चुअल इन्फॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं कि ये फैक्ट है, यू नीड टू एडहेयर टू दिस फैक्ट। सो इन दीज केसेस आप हेलुसिनेशन को काफ़ी रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं। सो इफ़ वी टॉक अबाउट द क्वेश्चन अगेन, सिस्टम प्रॉम्प्ट इंजीनियरिंग एक यूज़र परस्पेक्टिव से, आप जितना अच्छा प्रॉम्प्ट लिखेंगे, जितना अच्छा उसको प्रॉम्प्ट देंगे, वो उतना अच्छा आपको फाइन ट्यून आउटपुट देगा। बट देयर आर लिमिटेशंस टू इट। फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ as we talked about कि previous models of GPT which were not very heavily systemly architectured, तो उसमें हमारे पास काफ़ी hallucination के cases आते थे, काफ़ी false information के, non factual information के cases आते थे। But as they improved the system design, as they integrated the internet with it, as they integrated many databases with it, so उसके बाद आपकी जो है वो चीज़ें improve होना शुरू हो गई। So both go hand in hand, but system design is more important when you're talking about building your own model.
Achha, Zameet, from an engineering and career perspective, as Gen AI moves into production, what skills do you think are becoming more important?
I think the first skill that we can talk about is how to structure the whole system around your model. As we've talked about it a lot, system design is very important when it comes to generative AI. The second and most important thing would be to be able to accept what is partially acceptable. As engineers, as software engineers especially, we have a habit of identifying the problem and forming an output that would give the correct response to us. So usually we have a problem, we develop softwares for it, we develop a system for it, but that developed system has a structured way of solving that problem. For example, if you're talking about an app has all the code defined, उसमें सब कुछ आपके पास defined है, वो आपको पता है क्या function आपने provide करना है, function का क्या output होना चाहिए, but AI is very different. I think the biggest skill shift would be to design for probably correct, then always correct. That is, I think engineers would feel awkward listening to this, but we usually design softwares to be always correct. Bugs occur and all the process goes on, but usually जब हम कोई भी software design करते हैं तो we know what the problem is, and we know what function we need to build, and उसका क्या एक deterministic सा या इस तरह का कोई output होगा. But AI systems are not deterministic. आप उनको एक इनपुट देंगे, वो उस इनपुट पे आपको 4 डिफरेंट टाइप के रिस्पॉन्सेज दे सकते हैं। So I think that is a very big shift in software engineering, because you work on assumptions. You don't work on concrete outputs. You don't know what will happen and where the AI model will lead to. So the main thing you can handle is what to give to the AI model and the responses that it is giving. You can filter it out. You can, like we said, connect it to databases, design a whole system around it. But the biggest skill shift would be to design for probably correct.
Just to wrap up, what's one piece of advice you would like to give to the teams who are rushing to adopt Gen AI?
So one advice would be to stop asking where can we use AI and ask where we are comfortable with unpredictability, where we are comfortable with being non-precise. Because AI models, as we discussed throughout the podcast, that they can hallucinate, they can provide non-factual information. Even after many different methods, there is always a chance of uncertainty. So instead of rushing towards the things, rushing towards a new hype, we need to stop, think, and evaluate whether we need to use it. Are we comfortable with it giving wrong answers? Are we comfortable with Gen AI or any model giving our customers non factual information, building distrust? Or we're trying to integrate it in such a manner that it directly affects the relationship we have either with customers or someone, any customer that will be using our model. So I think that would be a concrete advice to stop going for the hype and stop and think that is it really required? Are we ready to handle the effects that it will carry?
Zameet, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing such a grounded perspective on Gen AI in production.
And thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be sitting here with you and discussing the trendy topics.
Thank you so much.
And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Shift Code Learn. We'll see you in the next episode.